Hello, Central Texas Rail fans. We do a layout tour today. SP Llano branch in scale. It started here at the Austin end of the railroad. There's downtown Austin, looking north, Lamar Boulevard, crossing underneath the Missouri Pacific. And of course, their yard back over here, and main track curved around, made its way over Town Lake. Currently, this piece of Cotto Unitrack here is my programming track, but plans are to add the abandoned spur that was in here to serve the ag plant that was at one time sat down here. And that track will be isolated from the layout, perfect for programming locomotives. So as you come underneath past the underpass here at Lamar, make way up to the Amtrak station. And of course, at one time, Buttercrust Bakery was back here. By this point, it was a Goodwill. And next to that, of course, Tips Iron Works. And we kind of have to compress and spin things around a little bit, but we'll have a major highway overpass here that'll serve as not only the Mopac Expressway, but also I-35 on the east end of town. And that's kind of where we come into the Southern Pacific portion of the layout. Make the way back here. This is the yards down there, east I-35 between 4th and 5th Street. You'll notice this yard, it's been because of space limitations, I couldn't build it the way it actually is, so it's been transposed. But I was able to keep most of the elements I wanted to model. Of course, at the back here is this orange construction paper represents Austin Metal and Iron. It's still there today. Had a big smokestack, and it's currently a scrap metal plant. Got our yard here. Yard tracks 1, 2, 3, and the main track back here behind that cut of hoppers. Superliner sitting on the scale track. And then next to that is the Barker Furniture warehouse track, which was formerly the old freight depot. And then next to that's the old main. I used to travel up 5th Street to where the depot still stands there on the west side of the freeway. And at this time, there were warehouses that kind of ran along here that'll be modeled. And as we come down this way a little bit, the track that'll come off here came down to what used to be, I guess, an old oil depot. The building's still there remarkably, but it was listed as the A.H.R. Litch Warehouse. I think that's where that model railroad Rock Island caboose was kept, along with a Central of Georgia passenger car friend Bert at one time procured. Alright, as we make our way down further railroad west, we get to Chacon Street, and just past Chacon Street here, we have Paper Mill Fiber, which is a waste paper plant. Really just a big warehouse and open yard. It was there up until a few years ago. There's, of course, condominiums there now. Once you get past Chacon Street, we get into the engine servicing area. And the construction paper actually represents the actual size of the buildings. That's what I plan on building them to. I don't like to compress things. I think it looks much more impressive when the structures are pretty close to life size. Why would you spot a boxcar next to a building that's half the size of the boxcar? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't look very good either. But as we come along, this is 5th Street. We've got Brown Distributing. It's remarkably still there today. No longer rail served. And as we make our way down through the engine facility and yard here, we've got the pig tracks 1 and 2, and we've got the rip track and the engine track. In the middle of that, here was a sanding tower and some old wooden frame buildings and tanks that supported engine servicing activities. And this was the old coach track, turntable track, long track in the yard. And then this track over here served the Leprino warehouse. Big warehouse is still there today, large warehouse. The photos I have, it showed had refrigerated boxcars spotted there, so probably perishable goods at that time. As we make our way down to the engine facility, we've got the crossover here. Came off the number 1 pig track and into the stock track, which we've got. At that time, this was called Canadian Street. It's today Robert Martinez yard office. You kind of come into the Austin Junction Y. You just have the 1 leg represented here. Of course, the stock track and then a main. You'd be going toward Giddings this way. All right, we make our way around, lay out here. But up until the 80s, Austin had spots where you had heavy, industry warehouses in the neighborhoods, and then, some more industry, and then open areas. It's really kind of a fascinating geography. So that's what I plan to do here with the layout, even though you could probably make the entire layout from one end of downtown to the other, or the Bergstrom Spur just full of all kinds of switching opportunities and industries. I kind of liked how there were neighborhoods in between some of those open areas. So with that in mind, as we kind of come out of the East Austin downtown area, 6th Street remodeled here. And then after 6th Street, we're going to jump ahead a few miles to Anderson Lane, which was pretty close to where I grew up. Anderson Lane, you're in the midst of the Wooten neighborhood. And you get to Olin Road, which is Olin and Renton is across the streets where I grew up on, so we'll have my childhood home modeled there. And then virtually a quarter mile from where I grew up, the railroad entered back into some more industrial areas. And the first one we come across was From, F-R-O-M-M-E. And this area here had quite a few industries located in it. But the big industries I'm going to model is Levitt's Furniture. And then we've got Capital City Lumber. On the back here, we've got Lone Star Company. It's a big warehouse. I don't know what they shipped at the time, but boxcars will probably be spotted there. One of the spurs that'll show abandoned but was in service was Wicks Lumber, and it went way back toward 183 a ways. I'm just going to make some concessions here sometime. And the Mayfield Runaround track and the Mayfield Public Team track with the ramp. So there's quite a bit going on there, just in that little area. And as you come a little bit further down Railroad, we get to 183. Now there's a big overpass and access roads. At that time, divided highway modeled across 183. A little bit of compression, but you get to where the old mag spur comes off and served. One time it went across Burnett Road to a magnesium plant in World War II. By this time it was cut back to the railroad side of Burnett Road and served McCoy's Lumber, which will be modeled. And we've got the J.C. Bond warehouse. When I switched it, it was Longhorn. We set out boxcars of newsprint, bricks, LCL. And then beyond that, at milepost 66 here is the Coors Cap Beverage warehouse. That was a 3-car spot. And then you could put 3 cars constructively in place. This probably just get 3 cars in here for the purposes of this model. And then today, for reference, the creek is still here, but this is a big box culvert, double track, and the big soccer stadium is back here, and Capital Beverage is now a big condominium. Right after the railroad, we come milepost 66, Cap Beverage around the curve here. Make our way to our first little town of McNeil. This is where we cross the Mopac. There's going to be a backdrop here. This railroad's supposed to be point to point. I wanted the option to continuously run, and really like the idea of being able to have a diamond in it that could get trains from both directions. But at McNeil here, would have been nice to have had the big lime plant and everything, but just don't have the room. San Gabriel River, and I scratch built this model with the exceptions of these concrete pillars here. I tried to cast some myself and just didn't like how they came out. But everything else built to scale, no compression. And 1-to-1, the bridge is 300 feet long. So this came out to, it's just short of 3 feet. It's a very impressive structure. And just took my time, looked at a lot of photos. Of course, I've run over 1 million miles, but just kind of put it together. And that's where we're at today. Also going to do a separate video on this one with more detail. As we leave the San Gabriel River, kind of out getting into the hill country here, got a big sweeping curve. There's going to be another view block back here. This area up here will actually be Marble Falls. I've figured out a way to put in a separate branch line, just like it is in real life, to get there. And more to come on that. But as we come around the big curve here, this is going to be a nice pasture with some of those oak trees and cows and a pond and aeromotor windmill and things like that. A lot of work to do here. We come around the curve and we kind of enter Bertram. We got a westbound freight sitting here. And of course, we'll have the big siding put in. At this time, the siding was the only thing there in Bertram, but because I've had to bypass Burnett and Liberty Hill and Leander, considering maybe adding a few of those industries here, in particular Hoover Lumber and Trina Feeds, maybe the Graphite Warehouse. Some of the big key elements in Bertram, of course, the iconic water tower will be there. And even though the depot was gone by then, I'm going to keep it there. We actually moved a sap depot there in the late 90s, but there were quite a few depots kind of hanging on by the late 70s, even though they were closed, and thought it might be something neat to have there instead of just a dirt pad. So we kick through Bertram here, and then we make our way into Gandy. Gandy's where the Pioneer gravel mines were. In real life, you leave Burnett, and it's the same way. You just kind of get out of the city, and then there you are right in the middle of the mines. So the transition will be kind of similar. There's a bit of a cow pasture. And the Gandy mine, it had a pretty sprawling complex of tracks. And so in consideration of space, essentially I'll have the west end of the fence tracks located here. That's where the empties get shoved into. And then as you come around here, the center track where they were loading out the cars is located. And then over here, the new spur 1 and 2, and the stub track will be represented, and that's where all the loaded cars ended up. The quarry was on the side of a hill, so they used gravity and times loaders to kind of push them around. That practice is no longer there. They got a diesel they have, a crew, interplant switching and all that. Of course, in the back, piles of aggregate for the prototype. And then one thing I'm going to add at the front here, which was always really fascinating, was there was some pits that were played out, and they were full of very beautiful, blue water. I wouldn't recommend swimming in them, but I'm going to have this cutaway here and have those rock faces and that water represented. As we leave Gandy, the next area will be Suddeth, where Dean Ward was, and Dean Ward and Chemical Lime. And there was just a couple of tracks in there. When I worked it, we had covered hoppers and the gondola cars spotted for 7th Street transload. And then on a big sweeping curve, you get to Fairland, where the Marble Falls branch will come off. I said more on that later. Then you cross, we'll put another little highway crossing in here, probably Highway 29. And then you make your way down to Stoltz. And the Stoltz spur was owned actually by the Georgetown Railroad, Texas Crushed Stone. They shipped granite out of there. So we'll add that spur. The next big bridge we get to is over Little Llano River, Llano River Creek. Not sure what the official name is for that. But there's a set of Pratt Truss bridges that go over it. If you're following my Facebook group, I was going to substitute a couple of Atlas bridges I had. And the more I thought about it, I was like, it's such a unique structure. I really don't want to do it twice. So I'm just going to get in there and kit bash these and build the wooden vents that are on the approach on either side, and make a more accurate representation of what's actually there. All right, and as we make our way past the bridge there, we get into making our way into Llano now. Llano have a couple of tracks. Of course, this is the end of the railroad. House track should be double-ended here. The Reiner track, the Wooten Farm and Ranch track that comes off here. And then I've also added off the house track here a spur that'll go to Trina Feeds. That way it'll keep the main track open for continuous running. And at the end there is also where the oil depot was at that time. And then of course the view block will be here to separate the meal area. Currently, main track is laid all the way around. We're just lacking this little area here over the creek. That's my next big project here, is to get that dropped in so we can have trains continuously running while we're working on other things. So that's it for the layout update. Thank y'all for watching.